Now, I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, we can see everything on this end, thanks.
Okay, good. I'll just start again then. All right, well, today I'm going to talk to you about graphic design specifically. Basically what the major is about, what you would be studying, some of the courses you'd be taking, careers in graphic design, and just the application process as well. I'm from Upper Iowa University. My name is Девід Stewart. I'm the director of the Center for International Education here. So I, as you may have heard before, I am trained in teaching English actually, but graphic design is a personal interest of mine. So I've taught myself Photoshop, Premiere Pro, some of these other Adobe products that I use in just creating my own marketing material for our department. We do have a marketing department here on campus as well that helps us with that kind of thing. But I do some of my own stuff as well. So yeah, this is a great interest to me. Let's do an overview of graphic design. So graphic design is, in some ways, it's a type of art. And in some ways, it's communication. So it's kind of an intersection of several different studies, you could say. Graphic design, it's primarily used to communicate through visuals. So whereas you might have, journalism, where you can write, create, or video, this is through visual elements. Pictures, typography, so words and pictures together. It's used in a lot of different ways. Obviously, to do traditional print. So if you're doing a magazine, either online or in print, book covers, this sort of thing, obviously it's used a lot. Very heavily used in advertisements of all sorts, and then also web design. So obviously, these days, that's going to be a big one. Anything on the internet, either creating the web page design or making elements of it, pictures, graphics, things like that. This is all going to be using graphic design. Now, when we think of graphic design, it is a type of art, but we distinguish it from studio arts in that partially that is to be done on computer. Now, obviously, studio arts can also be done on computer. You can create pictures in Photoshop, draw them on a tablet. That's possible. But generally, graphic design is going to be completely on the computer these days, just because everything tends to be done on the computer. In the old days, it was all done by hand, writing out the typefaces and things. And well, you can still do painting, sculpting and things off the computer. For studio arts, graphic design pretty much is 100% on the computer these days. Graphic design also tends to be very collaborative. Now what I mean by that is, as an artist, if you're a studio artist, maybe you just work by yourself, you make a painting, a sculpture, something like that, a drawing. But in graphic design, often you're going to be working, at least as a career, you're going to be working with a team of people. You could just make a website just by yourself, just go and code it and do everything yourself. But often you're going to be part of, maybe if you're working for a magazine, you'll have the editors, the writers, and then you would be the one doing the graphical elements. So it's very important in this field to be collaborative. Good communication is very important, because often you're going to be working with other people. And again, that's just an element of it. Let's talk about graphic design just at our university specifically, Upper Iowa University. Now, part of, it used to be, as of last year, that the graphic design department was part of the art department. This is because it is an art form, right? It is it's on the computer, but you're creating art. Now, recently, we moved it to the School of Business. This may seem strange to have art in business, But graphic design, as I said before, is different from studio arts in that it's communication and it's usually for a specific purpose. So we put it with business because it has to do with marketing a lot. So anyone who is working with marketing is going to be using advertisements, logos, things like that, where they're going to be needing graphic design as a large part of that. So that's why we put it with the School of Business. Again, because it's an intersection of several, it has to do with computers, art, and advertising, promotion. It could go in different places, but we've decided to do that. So if you came to study graphic design here, it'd be part of the School of Business. Now the classrooms are going to be in the same place because they have a huge computer lab where we do this. This is just for where it is situated, the faculty. Graphic design is a portfolio-driven program. This means that you're going to be judged basically on what you do, more than what you know. Excuse me. So basically, at the end of you won't have a test necessarily at the end of every course, but there'll be some project that you'll need to create. So you have to show that you have learned the skills that they've studied in class. Now this is important as well because many either going to graduate school after doing this bachelor's degree, or if you're going to get a job, most likely they're going to want to see a portfolio of your work. So this not only helps the professors here to see that you have studied, it also helps you to start kind of accumulating that portfolio that you will need later. Now, of course, in the earlier courses, the work might not be as good, but it also shows a progression, hopefully. So you start at the beginning, and by the end of the 4 years, then you should have, obviously, your skills should be much better. So it's also to show that kind of progression of your skills. You do not need a portfolio to be accepted to the program, though, and that's important. So you can come in with no portfolio. This is a bachelor's degree, so you don't need one from high school. But again, while you're here, we will help you to create one. So when you leave here, you will have a portfolio of your work. Students here can start coursework in graphic design from their first semester. So this is important because in some programs, you can be accepted to the university, but not actually be accepted to the program. So you may need to take some other courses, do some other kind of things to be accepted. But in our university, in Upper Iowa University, you can be accepted to graphic design right away. You can start graphic design coursework right away. So you don't need to go through any extra admission hurdles to be accepted to do that. Education, for instance, here has a lot more strict things that you have to do, and you can be accepted to it, but then there are other tests you have to do to be officially in the program there. So, but graphic design is no problem. Now, the unstated aim of our program is to train future art directors. Now, what I mean by this is that this is not just a technical program, where we teach you Photoshop or teach you Illustrator and then let you go out and make art. That's obviously part of it. You need to know how to use the tools, but it's more about, you'll get the entry-level positions, but it also, we want to give you that basis in the theory, in the kind of the underlying principles of graphic design, so that later it can help you to move up, the ladder. So it's not just a technical Photoshop course or something like that. It's to help you kind of to be able to advance in your career. So we'll get into some of that later. Now, Upper Iowa University, we have many different ways that you can take classes. obviously the one that you would be most interested in is on our main campus here in Fayette, Iowa. We're in the middle of the country, maybe about 5 hours west of Chicago. And so that's going to be the main one for international students. We also have about 25 different smaller locations around the United States, one in Hong Kong. But those, again, are going to be for mostly non-traditional students. They have evening classes. We also have an online program. We're actually very strong in online programs. And so graphic design is one of those that you could take online. So for instance, say you wanted to come to America to study here, but you couldn't do it for maybe 1 semester. You could start studying online, and then since it's the same university, just come here and continue. So that would be a possibility. Now, students who study online have to subscribe to the Adobe Creative Cloud. The reason is because those are the programs that we use for pretty much all our graphic design courses here. Adobe is the industry standard for a lot of these things like Photoshop. So that's the one that we would use most of the time. So obviously if you're here on campus, you can use the labs. We have those programs on all of the computers. But if you're doing it on your own from the Ukraine, then you would need to have it yourself, just so you could do the work, obviously. There are student discounts for that you can get, but now in terms of, as I said, we have a good online program. Upper Iowa University's graphic design bachelor's has been rated in the top 25 in the country, in the United States, and it was rated 18th overall. Again, most of international students aren't as interested in online programs, but that's just to say also that we do have a good program, both face-to-face and online. So what will you be studying? There are 39 credits that you would need to take in graphic design in order to be a graphic design major. Now, a normal bachelor's degree is 120 credits. So some of the other things there would be general education courses, a minor. So a minor would be just like another major, but not as much coursework. And then also things like electives, where you just choose to do different courses. So for graphic design, if you are a graphic design major, there are 9 courses you have to take. They're the core courses. So that would be 27 credits. Most courses are 3 credits. And then you would need to take 4 elective courses. So this is where you would get to choose other graphic design, or maybe things that would tie in with graphic design, such as marketing or communications, something like that. So there's a list of ones that you would take, some other ones as well. So that would total up to 39 credits, or 13 courses in the core. If you wanted to take a minor in graphic design, then it would be 24 credits, which is, yeah, 8 courses. So the reason why you might want a graphic design minor is if you were a major in an area that was kind of intersecting graphic design. So as I mentioned before, things like marketing has a huge overlap with graphic design. So if you're a marketing major, a graphic design minor would come in handy. Anything like communications, journalism, or even traditional art, any of those would go very well with graphic design. And as I said, we use the Adobe suite of programs for all our courses here in graphic design. Photoshop obviously is going to be one of the biggest ones, because that's the main one you're going to use for creating visual compositions, adapting photographs, modifying, editing, those sorts of things. We also use Illustrator for vector graphics, InDesign for any of the publications, layouts and things that we do, and Dreamweaver for doing websites, and of course other ones. The graphic designs don't get as much into video, of course, because that's a different thing. We do mostly, static video or static images, sorry, and things that you can print, but those are also part of the Adobe suite. All right, let's look at the core courses really quickly. I'm just going to go down through them, just give a brief introduction to what each course entails. Obviously, the first one would be Introduction to Graphic Design. So really, this program, it's good if you have an art background, but if you don't, we still will help you to kind of get into it and give you the background, because even if you have an art background, you probably don't know a lot of the history, the theory, and the principles behind graphic design. So this deals with, the history of graphic design before computers even, theories, what works best, how to lay things out, the principles of design. The next course would be digital photography. Obviously, photographs are a huge part of any graphic design program. So in this course, you'd practice taking photographs with a digital camera. So we'd get into all, light values, all the settings on the digital camera. And then of course, getting into using Photoshop to edit those pictures, working with resolutions, and also helping you to create an online portfolio. So you take pictures, you learn how to take the pictures with the camera, and they would have cameras provided, so you could use a nice DSLR. And then you would go in and edit those and then share them. So you'd be looking at other people's pictures as well. Next one is advertising design. So this would get into things like typography, different typefaces for lettering, visuals used in advertising, making logos. There's a logo, in this course, they have a logo creation competition where people make different logos and then you see who has the best one. This one would use InDesign for laying out, say, like a one-page advertisement for something. So again, it would go, in later courses, you'd probably do more with advertising, but this is kind of the basic how to advertise and some of the principles behind advertising design. Next one would be web publishing, social media. So this is going to, obviously, this is where you're going to start working with websites. You're going to do HTML, CSS, so learning how to make the sites, how to style them. This uses Dreamweaver because that's the Adobe websites or coding, HTML coding software. So then you would make your own website, just practice, playing around with the different elements. Next one, digital imaging. So you're going to get into creating images. So it's kind of a more advanced version of some of the other ones, maybe in Photoshop, and how to create some of those compositions. All right, and 4 left, publication design. So this is when you're going to get into how would you make a magazine, for instance. So you're going to look at style guides, for instance, because you want to have a very consistent style over the whole magazine. So lay down some of those principles. What style are we going to use for this? What types? What fonts? What sizes? All those things. So you're gonna, as if you're making your own magazine. You're gonna do layouts. This uses InDesign because InDesign is the basic layout software. It also gets into typographies. What types are best for the headings, for the titles, for the content. All right, the next one is a deeper look into typography. So how fonts, the differences in different fonts, you know, if it has a serif or sans serif, when is the best time to use those, some of the theory behind typography, and then also you get a chance to maybe create your own fonts. Digital illustration. So this would be using Illustrator, so creating vector graphics. So that's the main program that we use in that one. So just, yeah, practicing creating things, illustrations with vector graphics. So a little simpler with shapes and things. The last one here that you have to do is the senior portfolio. This is what we call a capstone class. It's kind of the final project for graphic design. Many different majors will have some sort of a senior project. So if you're in sciences, you may do a research project. Business, you might do a business plan. So for graphic design, you're going to create a portfolio just in this one semester for this course, kind of a culmination of everything you've learned in the courses so far. So this will be something, you know, you'll take your best work, create some other work, and then this would be something you could use when you graduate, either to go to a graduate program or to show it to an employer to get a job. All right, let's move on now to talking about careers in graphic design. Now, graphic design is a very competitive field. Right now, at least in the United States, there tends to be, it has slightly slower job growth than some other fields, just because there already are a lot of graphic designers out there. But in other countries, it will probably, the job market will be probably much better, especially places that are developing some of these, you know, their websites, their internet in general, and also just kind of increasing print and advertising. So the median income for graphic designers in 2017, at least, was about $48,000. This is about 1.3 million Ukrainian hryvnia. It's about $23 an hour, about 630. So this is the median, this is the middle income. So there's half above this, half below this. Because of kind of the nature of graphic design, this is, it's very often that people have their own businesses. They will work for clients, but they won't work for one company only. So about a third of the graphic designers in the United States, at least, have their own business. So they will have, companies will contract them to create some piece for them, a layout, something like that. Now, it's also very common that businesses will have their own art department. So they'll have their own graphic designers as well. And not just businesses, our university has its own communications department, marketing, where we do send out press releases and, you know, promotional materials. So we have our own graphic designers who will do that work for us, creating our brochures, any sort of videos, and our website, obviously, things like that. So in today's society, everyone, all sectors have uses for graphic designers. All right, so here's a list of some of the careers in graphic design. We won't go through these in detail, but things like art directors, creative directors, obviously anyone who's in charge of either in the business sector with marketing and promotion, in the entertainment industry. Clearly, they have a lot of use for this if you're creating movies or TV shows. Anything in print media, so magazines, publishing, books, you know, they have a lot of use for this as well. Film video editors, getting into, obviously, marketing managers, multimedia artists, animators. So there's a lot of different ways you can use a degree in graphic design. Even photographers, you know, because photographers these days are not only going to be taking photographs, but they're also going to have to digitally edit them as well. And then web designers. So there's a very large need for people to make websites, obviously, because everything we do these days has a mirror image on the internet. So every school, every business will have their own website and their own presence online, usually on multiple platforms. So what makes a strong graphic design candidate? So you're interested in graphic design, you want to study that, but how do you know you're going to be successful? What should you do, or what should you be to be good at graphic design in university? At Upper Iowa University, as I said before, there's no separate qualifications for admission to the graphic design program. So you don't need to have a portfolio, as I said before. You don't need to pass any sort of special drawing tests or prove that you know how to use Photoshop. We will teach you that here. So there's nothing you need to do special for that. Yes, you'll assemble a portfolio. You don't need to have one already. Now, however, there are some characteristics that will make you successful at being a graphic designer. For instance, obviously the first one, the ability to communicate. This is important everywhere, of course, but especially in graphic design, because the idea, as I said in the first slide, is to communicate a message or something through visuals. So we're trying to, not only in the words that we use, but in the images, the colors, just the composition, all of this is going to give a message. So we need to be able to take either the idea that's in our head and be able to communicate that effectively to people who are going to see our work, or we need to take the idea that a client gives us, or that somebody who is hiring us, they're going to give us some idea that they have, and then we have to put it into a form that will be understood by others. So clear communication is very important in this field. Ability to learn and work independently. This, because graphic design uses technology so heavily, as you know, technology changes all the time. Even between different updates of the same program, you need to always be learning. And so for this, to be a good graphic designer, you need to be able to just be able to learn on your own, to be able to investigate, poke around, and see how things work. That's kind of a prerequisite for a lot of different fields these days, but even more with this, where you're using technology so heavily. Also, working independently, like any artist, most of the work is going to be done by yourself. As I said, it is collaborative, so you'll be working with other people, but the work itself is usually done by yourself. So you work, do a bit, go back to them and see what they think, get some ideas. So yeah, independent work is very important. Drive and passion. This is true for a lot of things, especially anything creative. You really have to be excited about art, about graphic design to do this, because it's really, as an art form, it takes a lot of work, as you know, to get your skills better. You don't have to be excited or ecstatic about accounting, maybe, to be an accountant. Obviously, it's good to be interested in it. But for something like this, where it's any sort of art form, you really need to be very passionate about it to be able, because there's a lot of hard times. It's a lot of times when it's just, it takes a long time to do anything. So you need that kind of inner motivation to pull you through. Open-mindedness. Of course, as things change, we're trying to, you have to be able to look at the world in a different way. Again, going back to communication. So you really need to be able to kind of think of other ways to communicate some idea. And the best graphic designers and the best kind of images kind of look at things in a different way and make people think of them in a different way. So again, if you open-minded, thinking outside the box, you know, you'll have a better chance of communicating maybe that unique message. Ability to take criticism. Obviously, this is extremely important. In art, you can make a painting, and somebody can say, well, I don't like that, or I don't get that. But it's up to the interpretation, really, of the person who sees it. So you can say that, well, I like that, I see this, someone else sees something else. For graphic design, really, you're trying to communicate a specific message. And so everyone's going to have an idea about that. And if you're working for a client, for instance, you bring your work back to them, and they say, oh, I don't like this. No, let's do this. Let's change this part. So there's going to be the feedback. That's where we get into the collaboration. You work, and then people will give feedback. So a lot of this maybe could be constructive criticism, but there's also going to be negative criticism where people just say, no, I hate this, or this is not for me. So it's very important not to take that personally. This is true with a lot of things, but especially with this, because everyone has their own opinions on art and visual things. So it's important not to take things personally. Just be able to accept the criticism, take it back, make the work better. Problem solving, obviously. So as I said, trying to figure out a way of communicating some specific message in a unique and thought-provoking way. How can we do that? So problem solving, we're going to be thinking about it in different ways. And obviously patience. You need to be patient because art takes a very long time, especially if you're going back to someone and they say, let's change this. You know, it can take a very long time to get through even one project. So you need to be able to patiently just keep at it until it's finished. So these are all the things. Again, these are not things you can be accepted into the program. Anyone can be accepted into the graphic design program, but these are the traits that are going to make you a successful graphic designer, both at school here and then after you graduate. All right. Now let's look at the application process. As I said, there's nothing special that you need to do at Upper Iowa University in order to be accepted into the graphic design program. So this is going to be the general application process for any undergraduate student at Upper Iowa. Other universities are going to be slightly different, and I can talk about some of those differences. I can make a whole webinar, of course, just about this topic, this one slide, and I have before, but I will just give you the basics right now. So our university, and any university, is going to start with an online application. Almost all applications are online now, of course, because it's much easier. Here's the link to ours. So you would just go, it takes about maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, fill out that application, and then we have a record of you in our system. For us, we don't have an application fee, so you can do it for free. Some universities do have a fee, maybe $20, $30, $50, something like that. We also don't have application deadlines. Now, what this means is that with rolling admission, as we call it, you can apply anytime, even up to a couple of weeks before the classes start. We can accept you, and then really the only thing that is stopping you is getting a student visa. So if you can get a student visa, fine, that's no problem. If you cannot, we will defer you to the next semester. Now, it's best, of course, to apply at least 3 or 4 months before you want to start, because mail takes a long time, and especially getting a student visa can take a very long time sometimes. Okay, so the next thing after you've applied is to send in your documents. There are 2 things that we need to accept you. One would be your official transcripts, which is a list of your grades, probably from high school. But if you have gone to any university classes as well, we would need those too. Those have to be official, which means they have to be stamped by the school that they're official, usually in a sealed envelope. Education USA, I think, can do certified copies, and we will take those as official as well. Also, there's the proof of English proficiency. So this could be a TOEFL, IELTS, various tests like that. If anyone has gone to a school where all courses are taught in English, and you have a statement like that, then we will waive the proficiency test. So as long as we have some proof that your English is good enough to study all in English here, that's good enough for us. Again, there's a big list of ones that we will take. Other schools will require other things as well, possibly a personal statement, letters of recommendation, etc. Maybe SATs. We require the SATs for American students, but not for international students. Just because it is very difficult sometimes for international students to be able to do the SATs. So we don't want to make that a block for them coming here. So for international students at Upper Iowa, there are only two things that you would need. So after that, you would get accepted, hopefully. And then we would offer you a scholarship. We offer scholarships to all students who get accepted. Now the scholarships range from $5,000 to $16,000 a year. $16,000 is about a little over 50%. So we don't have any full scholarships. We have up to about half scholarships for this. And this is going to be based on your grades in high school. So we'll look at your transcript, and based on your grades there, we will give you a scholarship corresponding to the level of your grades. We will change it into the American system. You don't need to worry about that. Then the next thing, now you can send these documents at the same time as the other ones, but you don't have to. They're not required to be accepted to the university. But also then we would need a financial statement. The US government requires this for a visa, just showing that you have the money to study. And then if the bank statement, the financial statement is not in your name, if it's in your parents' name, they would just need to do a separate paper called an affidavit of support, just saying that they're going to pay for your education. And then we just need a copy of your passport. Very easy, and that can be emailed to us as well. So it's best obviously to send all these documents together because mail can get expensive. But again, if you don't have them or you don't want to, you can send them later. The financial statement and the transcript have to be sent right now on paper. So they have to be sent in the mail physically. If you use the Common App, your high school counselor could upload those and we can take those digitally, but that's really the only exception right now. So besides that, those two would need to be mailed. The other ones, if you have an IELTS result, you can email that because we can look it up online. A copy of your passport, of course, affidavit, those can be emailed, just a scan. So, of course, this is very complicated, so you can always ask me later if you have any questions. All right. Then finally, of course, you receive your I-20 and you get your student visa, hopefully. And then you get your plane ticket and come here and study. So that's how it goes ideally. So it's not too many steps, but again, things can get complicated. That's why we're here, to help you answer any questions you have. At some larger universities, it may be difficult to find someone to answer questions about applications and admissions. But for our offices, we email all students back who email us to explain anything. So you can always email us with questions. All right, for more information about graphic design at Upper Iowa University, there's two websites here. Now I can send this PowerPoint to you later by email, so you can get this, so you don't feel like you have to write it down right now. So our graphics design department has their own website that they created, just with information about the program, graphicsdesign.weebly.com. They do it here partly because as an example for creating websites, they use Weebly, which is like a free website creation platform. So they did this kind of as an example of what a website would be like, and then also to give information. And then there's our official website where you can look at the graphic design major and some information about that. And that lists all the courses that I was telling you about and shows the faculty and things like that. All right, do you have any questions? Either typed in or you can just ask them if you'd like.
So for anybody who's online, feel free to type in your questions into the chat box. And if there's anybody in the room who's interested to ask a question, let me know. I'll give you the mic.
And I'll go back to stop sharing my screen so I can see if anyone has any questions.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions in the room.
Well, I will email you this presentation, and then if you have any questions later, you can give my email to the students and they can always email me questions later. I'm happy to help. And then I can also, if there was something very technical about the programs, I could get one of the graphic design professors to answer as well. So
sounds great. Thank you very much for a fantastic presentation. We really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I hope you all have a good evening there.
Thank you. The same to you.
All right. See you later. Bye.